Hello Hawthorne and Sycamore. I'm going to continue reading our class reader, The Skylarks War by Hilary McKay. We're on chapter 21. It's called Saved by the Books and it's currently winter in 1915. Now we know that the war started in 1914, so the war has been going on for a year now. And at this point in the story, Rupert's still on the front line. We last heard that he was in France. They managed to save Lucy. She wasn't sent to the war. Peter's still at boarding school. So is Simon, but Simon's coming to visit Clary a lot of the weekends. And Vanessa is working at a nurse in one of the hospitals in England to look after soldiers that have come back wounded from the World War I. So, chapter 21, Saved by Books. In Cornwall, Clary had found one world of freedom. At school, she discovered another, even more of a refuge than the first had been. She needed a refuge now, more than ever. The war filled her with fear when she thought of Rupert. School was not an escape from that fear, but it kept her mind busy and tired her, so she slept at night. Lately, it had also given her hope for the future that one day might make her truly independent. After the war, thought Clary. It was comforting to think that one day there really would be a time after the war. Meanwhile, there were books. Clary carried them around in armloads. Up in her room, she would pile books on her bed and curl up beside them to read. She slept with them within reach, comforting, solid companions to help her through the dark dreams. Nothing about school dismayed her. The cold classrooms and the constant demands for quietness, which other girls complained about, did not bother her at all. Her home with its clammy rooms and long silences made school positively cheerful in comparison. Best of all, she found that she had a brain, a good, quick brain that could see patterns in maths and links in history, was entranced by science and was getting faster and faster at decoding Latin and French. When Peter came home at Christmas and inspected her work, he nodded with satisfaction. "It was you who started me off," said Clary, and saw for a moment the secret hidden Peter, eyes gleaming with pride in their joint success. "Has father said anything?" he asked. "What about? You, school, what you'll do afterwards?" "No, he hasn't," said Clary, but something in the way she spoke made Peter say, "Somebody has." "Yes," admitted Clary. "When I got moved up faster than the rest." "Did you?" "Twice at the beginning, and last year I won a little shield for Student of the Year." "Go on." "Well, you know how the head invites people to her study?" "No." "For tea and to talk. When I went, I told her about you going to Oxford." "If I get a scholarship," interrupted Peter. "You will," said Clary, certainly. "And she, my head, said I should think about it too." "Your head thinks you could get an Oxford scholarship?" asked Peter, and then, a moment later, he said slowly, "She's right. You could get an Oxford scholarship. Not for years, though." "Well, you need years," said Peter robustly. "You're nowhere near yet, and it would be worth it. It would get you out of this place one day, wouldn't it?" They were in the sitting room every year more faded and welcoming. "Father doesn't notice it, I don't think," said Clary. "He's out so much, I hardly see him. But if I didn't have school to go to, I don't think I could bear it here. I'll have to do something when I leave. I was thinking of Vanessa in her hospital, but she pretended to be much older than she was to get in. I don't think I could do that. I don't look grown up." "You don't have to look grown up to go to Oxford. You just have to have brains. Do you ever see Vanessa?" "Yes. Once I went to Southampton and she comes quite often if she visits the cottage. She's not supposed to, but she borrows her dad's car. She makes Mrs. Morgan laugh and even smiles sometimes." "Does she?" Peter picked up a book and began turning the pages very rapidly. "Does she ever ask about anyone?" "She asks about everyone," Clary told him sturdily. "You and me, Simon if he's been here, Rupert of course, and what he's doing, in France." "Belgium," said Peter. "Is he? I think so. I hate my leg, don't say. Does it hurt? It serves me right if it hurts. I'm a coward." "Peter, you are not." "I tell people I fell. I don't tell them how." "It wasn't your fault." "Of course it was. I jumped off a train to get out of school. What would Vanessa say if she knew?" "You told Simon, so perhaps she already does. She wouldn't say you were a coward anyway. How could you have known there would be a war?" "I wish I could do something to help." "Vanessa helps. I think that's how she stays happy. She talks about terrible things, awful injuries, and then she tells me about people who get better. And she has fun. She loves it." "Dancing," said Peter, gloomily glaring at his leg. "Lots of things. She's either terrifically busy or falling asleep, and she smells all the time of carbolic soap. Last time she was here, Father said, 'Good God, what's that appalling smell?' And Vanessa said, 'Darling, it's me,' and laughed and laughed." "What did Father do?" "Oh, he just went away as fast as he could." "Typical," grunted Peter. Clary, is there any food? I'm starving. I should like bacon and sausages and grilled tomatoes. All right, you needn't laugh. I know it would just be toast. It won't. We have sausage rolls, said Clary, jubilantly. From Mrs. Morgan's munitions canteen. She's been keeping me supplied with them every time a batch gets burnt. She came yesterday and brought some more. Come into the kitchen. There are 6. Shall we hot them up or eat them like they are? 1 each as they are now, 2 more hotted up. I haven't had anything to eat all day, and then it was only porridge. 1 each hotted up, said Carrie firmly. I'm keeping 2 for father. Toast and apples afterwards, and there's a pot of honey I've been saving. A patient gave it to Vanessa, and she gave it to me. Me, Clary had been about to say, but changed it to us, and saw her brother's face brighten briefly, and then grow sombre again, as he said, I've got a plan what to do after school. I used to think if I could, I'd go to Oxford and study natural sciences, but how will that help anyone? He got up from the table suddenly and began pacing and rubbing at his leg. It cramped, he said apologetically. It never mended properly, it was badly set. Clary had learned the saying, poor old Peter, only aggravated him, so instead she asked something she had been saving for a long time, for when they were safely alone. Can I show you a picture I found in the old dictionary? What sort of picture? A photograph. Wait. Ever since she had found the dictionary, Clary had hardly let it out of her sight. Now she produced it from her school bag, carefully unwrapping it from a piece of brown paper. I've been wanting to show you for ages, she said, only I've been afraid it would make you sad. Look. Peter took the little picture, stared at it in disbelief, turned it over, read the back, and then, to Clary's great relief, laughed in delight. That's her. I remember. That's just how I remember. How brilliant. Clary, doesn't she look like you? That's what Vanessa said. You showed it to Vanessa? Yes, that's how I went to Southampton. Do you mind? Of course not, but why? Rather hesitantly at first, Clary told him about Mrs. Morgan and a description of the mother's illness, and how afterwards she, Clary, had needed to talk to someone who would understand because all her life it had been dreadful believing. Listen, Clary, interrupted Peter at this point. When I was a kid, I believed that too, but I was stupid. I saw that years and years ago. It wasn't your fault. You didn't choose any of it. Vanessa should have told you that. She did, and she said she knew you didn't blame me. She said you were much too decent. I wish someone could have helped Mother, though, Peter. Wouldn't everything have been different now if they had? Peter nodded, picking up the picture again. Vanessa says you can get copies of photographs, Clary told him. How much do you think it cost? Might there be somewhere in Oxford? I'll find out, promised Peter. And one day we'll do it, however much it costs. Take it with you, then it'll be safer with you. Father might... She jumped suddenly at the sound of the front door. They glanced at each other. Peter stowed the picture back in the dictionary in his bag, and then his bag under his arm, while Clary hurried into the hall. There he was, meticulously rolling his umbrella, taking off his hat. Hello, Father, said Clary brightly. You're just in time. I filled the kettle for tea and we saved you hot sausage rolls. I've eaten, thank you, Clary. Is Peter back again? I see his coat. I'm here, said Peter, appearing with his bag. How are you, Father? Quite well. Rather too busy at the office. All well with you? Yes, thank you. A little fire in the sitting room to make it comfortable for you, said Clary. Thank you. Very thoughtful, said her father, and went in and closed the door. I expect he's tired, said Clary. What he is, began Peter, and then looked at Clary and shut up, a thing he had not done a year before. But then, Peter was changing. Chapter 22. Death of a Friend. Now, this is now summer 1916, so we've moved quite a bit. That last chapter was winter 1915. We've now gone all the way to summer 1916. Chapter 22. Death of a Friend. The winter that followed was very hard to bear. The war news was terrible. No one heard from Rupert. School helped Clary, though. The sane, cold classrooms, the friendly faces, the solid comfort of books. In spring, they said, well, at least it's spring, but no one dared say, over by Christmas. And then summer came round again, and to Clary's complete surprise, her grandmother wrote to ask her and Peter to visit. Clary and her father met at the foot of the stairs, each holding a letter, each smiling with delight. Very helpful, said Clary's father, rubbing his hands together. No more than they should do, of course, but ever so, Clary looked at him in sudden apprehension, recognising that something uncomfortable was coming. I've been wondering if it would be sensible for you to be in Cornwall long term. Long term? Out of danger, air raids. I suppose you can't be except to know, but there were air raids in London only a few weeks ago. Zeppelins, very unpleasant. We had a talk about Zeppelins at school from the geography teacher, said Clary. She said we were not to fuss about the air raids because the prevailing winds from the Atlantic makes it almost impossible that the Zeppelin airships will ever come so far west. Be that as it may, said her father impatiently, I'm sure your grandparents would be glad to have you. There is no need for you to stay on at school once you are over 14. There is. I guess you would argue. Very well. At any rate, you will be away for the summer, which is something. It was something. It was a summer that Clary properly made friends with her grandmother. Peter, whose last year of school was coming up, spent most of his time studying. Clary took school books with her too, but she also found time to garden with her grandmother in long silky summer evenings and to look through photograph albums of Victorian strangers who might or might not have been distant relations. Last of all came herself, Peter and Rupert. Rupert is very much like his mother used to be, said her grandmother. Those golden good looks. We hardly hear from him, you know. I write to him weekly, and his grandfather sends messages, but there has been nothing back for months. Clary didn't reply. She had heard from Rupert, a few forlorn lines that she thought it was best her grandmother didn't hear. I'm sorry, Clary, it's a bit of a mess, isn't it? I try not to let myself think. His friend was dead. His wild, mad Latin-quoting football captain, red-headed friend, Michael, killed in no man's land a mile or so from where Rupert was stationed. But word had come racing down the trenches to him. He's out there. We can't fetch him in. I'll fetch him in, said Rupert, and went crawling out into the terrible summer night through cracked swamps of mud and splintered metal and wire and stiffened bundles that were not men or trees or anything recognisable anymore. Miraculously, although the dark was splattered with gunfire, no sniper bullets found him, and he came to his friend, all broken in a shell hole, still alive but clammy cold. There were strange shapes where his boots should have been, and his right arm ended too soon, but he got one eye open and croaked, Rosie, out of the good side of his mouth. Rupert pulled flasks out from his pocket and said, Rum? Water? Come on, my mad Irish. But he couldn't swallow, so Rupert lay beside him and put his arm round him and said, We'll get out a stretcher party and have you back before the pub shut. And his friend's good eye glared at him, the white showing bright. Go to sleep, get your head down, said Rupert. Busy day tomorrow, if we're to get you home before dark. Cold, whispered his friend. So Rupert dragged his own jacket off and tucked it round Michael's chest. He thought his back was probably broken, as well as everything else, because of the way his legs were sprawled, like a puppet with the strings cut. Right overhead, a flare popped, greenish silvery light. Rupert felt his friend's eyes on him again. It seemed to take a long time for the flare to fade, but then there was another, but not so close, and a crump of explosions further down the line. Clean the chimney, said Rupert, which was an old-school joke from the time of Clary's great idea and Peter and Simon the Bony One's rocket. He wished his friends would hurry up and die, but he was young and strong, and so it took until morning. Then Rupert tried to pick him up, but he couldn't, so he walked back, empty-handed in his shirt sleeves, forgetting his jacket. He took no care walking back, but strangely, nothing happened to him. The next day he wrote a letter to Ireland saying how lucky it was that his friends had died from a single bullet, instantaneously, never knowing a thing. It was only 2 years since they had both left school, but it felt an awful lot longer. And that's where we're going to finish for today. Bit of a sad place to finish, really. So the next chapter is called Chapter 23, How Do You Spell It? Right, I'll read the next part of the story as soon as I can. I'll see you all soon. Take care, Hawthorne Sycamore. Bye-bye.